Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, we are coming to you live from the deck of the USS Midway Museum for this Memorial Day occasion, which is surely quite unique this year. My name is Mark Bailey, and I'm truly excited and honored to be with you on this live simulcast journey. Our viewers are going to go to 4 of our most iconic locations in America's finest city this morning. Today, we will travel to Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery on the tip of Point Loma, the Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial, rising high above the La Jolla coast, the Miramar National Cemetery, adjacent to one of our most important Marine Corps air stations, and here on board the mighty USS Midway Museum in downtown San Diego, where this year we are honoring both the 75th anniversary of the ending of World War II and the USS Midway's own 75th anniversary. Over the next 60-plus minutes, come with me and help us commemorate those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. And let us dedicate some time to honoring them during this 2020 Memorial Day event. We're also grateful for the many who could not be with us here in person today, but shared their own pre-recorded messages, and we look forward to presenting them to you. But first, we travel just off to the northwest by just a few miles to a remarkable location overlooking us here on the USS Midway. There lay such honored heroes as Petty Officer First Class Charles Keating IV, a Navy SEAL who was killed in action in Iraq in 2016, and Sergeant Rafael Peralta, a Marine Corps infantryman and Navy Cross recipient, killed during the Second Battle of Fallujah, and Petty Officer Second Class Michael Mansour, a Navy SEAL, Medal of Honor recipient, also killed in Iraq. This is the Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery.
Good morning, and welcome to Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery, voted one of the top 5 most beautiful national cemeteries in the world. Color Guard, march on the colors.
Forward, forward. Counter march. March. Color guard. 3, set, go.
Lance Corporal Megan Browning, United States Marine Corps, will now sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Harry, coat.
Color guard. Post the colors.
Right wheel, march.
Chaplain Terry Gordon, Navy Region Southwest Chaplain, will now offer the invocation. Following the invocation, Mr. Robert Lewis, United States Marine Corps, retired, will present a wreath honoring those that we have lost.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, for many decades, Americans as a people have paused to remember the men and women of our military who made the ultimate sacrifice in service of our great country. On this last Monday of May, we honor all those who died in active military service and remember the cost of the freedoms we enjoy today. Lord, we begin our observance on this hallowed ground inside of this most beautiful city. We ask that you help us to put aside the things that distract us this day and allow each of us to remember the sons and daughters who gave their lives in devotion to the nation they loved. We remember them all, both the dead represented in the graves before us, as well as the families they left behind. It is their sacrifice which allows us to stand before you in freedom. May we be mindful that men and women of our great nation continue to stand the watch. Protect them all, and may you continue to bless our great nation. For it's in your holy name that I pray. Amen.
I have the honor of introducing Brigadier General Ryan Heritage, Commanding General, Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Western Recruiting Region.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for taking the time to listen in today. My thanks to the USS Midway Museum and Fort Rosecrans Memorial Day committees for making this happen in such a unique environment, and for the opportunity to address you all on such a solemn and important occasion. Despite the challenges we're all facing with the pandemic, it's critical that we pause to reflect and to pay tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of this country, and to remember their families who sustained the pain of their death. Let me start by welcoming the Gold Star mothers, wives, and families watching today. You have my utmost thanks and gratitude. We are indebted to you forever. Also, special thanks to Mayor Faulkner, city and county officials, general and flag officers, all those working the front lines, family and friends. Again, thank you for taking the time to dial in today. The soldiers, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and Marines who lie here deserve so much more than words. But this moment of reflection, this recognition of the cost they paid, and recognition of the pain their families endured is what we have to offer today. That alone, with a renewed commitment to service and sacrifice. As I look out across these amazing grounds and on to San Diego Bay behind me, with the submarine base, the airfields on North Island, the ship's pierside along 32nd Street, the depot, and the Coast Guard section headquarters, I can't help but think of how proud the men and women lying here would be of their counterparts today. That despite the growing uncertainty and world divide, despite a pandemic, that these young men and women continue to step up. They continue to pledge to something greater than themselves. In a time when international communities are distracted, some seek opportunity. These people need to know that their actions will not go unchallenged. We will not let the sacrifice represented on these green fields, on the gravestones of our heroes, be forgotten or devalued. Sergeant James Ursley Pointer, 33, born 1 December 1916 in Bloomington, Illinois, enlisted in the Marine Corps in February of 1942, and subsequently participated in the Guadalcanal, Southern Solomons, Saipan, Tinian, and Okinawa campaigns, was discharged in February of 1946, subsequently moved to Downey, California. As the father of 4, he re-enlisted in the Marine Corps at the outbreak of the Korean conflict and arrived in Korea in time for the recapture of Seoul after the Incheon landing, serving as a squad leader with 7th Marines. His Medal of Honor citation reads, Sergeant Pointer, already wounded in hand-to-hand combat against overwhelming enemy forces, saw 3 machine guns setting up only 25 yards away. Gathering hand grenades from fallen comrades, he stormed all 3 positions in rapid succession, killing the crews of 2 guns and putting the 3rd out of action before he fell, mortally wounded, enabling his outnumbered men to drive off the enemy and move to more defensible positions. We do not know one promise these men made, one pledge they gave, one word they spoke, but we do know they summed up and perfected, by one supreme act, the highest virtues of men and citizens. For love of country, they accepted death, and thus resolved all doubts, and made immortal their patriotism and their virtue. James Garfield. This coming Friday at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot here in San Diego, we'll graduate 253 of America's newest Marines, with a quiet ceremony, no fanfare, no families. But if you could look into their eyes, examine their heart, and test their character, you would find discipline, confidence, and grit, a wrought determination, and an unwavering commitment, the same as Sergeant Pointer. It's because of men and women like this in every service that we will continue to live up to the expectations set before us by those that lay here in these hallowed grounds. This is a beautiful place, quiet and serene, an appropriate resting place for those who staked their all to defend our nation, our values, and our way of life. For over 150 years, we as a nation have dedicated to recognizing the sacrifice of those American servicemen and women who died in battle, in places not peaceful nor serene. So on behalf of the Marines, sailors, Coast Guardsmen, and civilian employees of Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego on Memorial Day 2020, from beautiful Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery, God bless and Semper Fidelis.
When the attacks of September 11th, 2001 shocked our nation, men and women volunteered by the thousand to serve their country. Those already in uniform tightened their bootlaces, sharpened their skills, and focused both themselves and those in their charge. 3, 4, or 5 deployments to Afghanistan or Iraq were common, even for those who served only one enlistment. They courageously fought through intense urban conflict, while a short helicopter ride away, They battled in vast rural areas, not knowing if a shovel was for farming or in placing IEDs against them. But they remained committed to their mission, committed to their country, and to the people of those nations. Some deployments had short stints of calm and progress, while in some places there were weeks or months of combat. They faithfully battled an often faceless enemy with no front line, nowhere truly safe. So many stood tall, yet some never came home. Those who survived took a knee on the battlefield, and we paused to mourn together. We now stand on the shoulders of our fallen brothers and sisters and strive to uphold their legacy. Their memories remain with us, driving our current generations onward, and I know they will continue to inspire us for generations to come. We honor those who answered our nation's call in operations enduring freedom and Iraqi freedom and made the ultimate sacrifice. We are forever in their debt.
As the commander of the Coast Guard's 11th District, which serves the people of California and the southwestern United States, it's an honor for me to represent the Coast Guard for San Diego's Memorial Day virtual simulcast commemoration to remember the sacrifice of fallen service members. San Diego is officially designated as a Coast Guard city and continues to be an outstanding supporter of our military, and events like this mean a great deal to both the military community and the nation. Even though we're not marching in parades or attending ceremonies in person this year, the men and women of your Coast Guard are paying tribute to the heroes who came before us. This year we are honoring them by continuing to perform our duties to keep America safe and secure. We are intercepting drug smugglers at sea to keep dangerous narcotics out of our country and disrupt the criminal networks that bring instability to Central and South America. We are safeguarding our shipping ports and waterways to ensure the flow of maritime commerce, an activity that supports $4.6 trillion of economic activity and 23 million American jobs. We are protecting our nation's natural resources by enforcing environmental laws and regulations. And we stand ready to save lives at sea so that others may live and return home to their loved ones. We perform these duties in honor of those who never came home, those who put the needs of their country before their own, those who made the ultimate sacrifice. So today we remember these brave men and women by showing our appreciation and taking a moment to reflect on their selfless dedication. As we live our lives during the coronavirus pandemic, we're grateful for the freedom and the peace that their sacrifice has given us. Let's ensure these heroes are never forgotten.
Hello, I'm County Supervisor Jim Desmond. The Navy brought me to the San Diego region, and for that I'm grateful. But I've always had a deep affection in my heart for people who have served and for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. Today, the Memorial Day event is a virtual event. That doesn't really change anything, or it should change anybody's outlook on what these folks did, these veterans that gave the ultimate sacrifice, and what they did for us. It's something in your heart about where you celebrate Memorial Day or how you celebrate it, as long as you remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for the rest of us to enjoy our liberties and our freedoms in one of the greatest areas in the country, San Diego County. Happy Memorial Day.
We travel next to the Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial, where over 5,000 plaques honor veterans, both those that have fallen and those that are still with us, overlooking the picturesque La Jolla coast. Among them are those dedicated to veterans from the global war on terrorism, all the way back to the Revolutionary War. But today, prominent are scores of plaques commemorating the service of the brave men and women who are veterans of the Vietnam War.
Good morning. Greetings from Mount Soledad, our National Veterans Memorial. This is a very special place for all San Diegans, for all of our state and all the nation. And it's a real privilege to be joining with you today as we celebrate those that made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. At this memorial, we have over 5,000 plaques of our servicemen and women who have served our country, whether it be from the Revolutionary War to the War on Terror. We are so proud of our military men and women in San Diego. It's the largest footprint of the United States military in the country. It's part of who we are. It's the fabric of our city. It's in our DNA. And so on this very special day, we come together as a city to remember, to pay tribute, to pay homage for those that died for our freedoms so we could be here today. I want to thank all of you for tuning in, joining virtually, for supporting those that made the ultimate sacrifice for us.
Thank you, Mayor Faulkner. Good morning. I'm Neil O'Connell, the president of the Mount Soledad Memorial Association. Almost 60,000 Americans were killed between 1954 and 1975, including Marines from Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. From June 1966 to March 1971, the 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines fought in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. They fought in such places as Chu Lai, Da Nang, Quang Nam, during Operations Hastings, Operation Union, and Union 2 in the Khe Sanh Valley, receiving a Presidential Unit Citation. They fought at the Battle of Hue, An Ho, Operation Swift in the Khe Sanh Valley, receiving a second Presidential Unit Citation in Fire Base Ross. During the Vietnam War, the unit was called the Consummate Professionals. Over 130 of their brothers did not return. Today we honor them. There is a plaque which lists the names of these Marines, as well as 6 United States Navy corpsmen and their battalion chaplain, Lieutenant Vincent Capodanno, who was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously. Originally stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington in the early 1960s, Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 22nd Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Division, departed Tacoma, Washington on September 22, 1966. They were bound for Vietnam. Their first base camp was called Bearcat, and later in 1966, they were relocated to Hoa Tang, Tay Ninh Province, not far from the Cambodian border. The 3rd Battalion, 22nd Infantry, initially served with the 4th Infantry Division in Vietnam until transferring to the 25th Infantry Division on August 1, 1967. Throughout its service in Vietnam, the division conducted combat operations ranging from the western Central Highlands along the border between Cambodia and Vietnam to Quang Nguyen on the South China Sea. The division experienced intense combat against the People's Army of Vietnam regular forces that were burrowed in the mountains surrounding Kon Tum in the autumn of 1967. Many weeks and sometimes months were spent in places like Tay Ninh, Da Tang, Soi Kut, Hoc Mon, Saigon, and Bo Trai. At the end of April 1971, they finally returned to America and were stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. Currently, the 3rd Battalion is deactivated, but the regulars are always ready to serve. Over 100 of these men did not return from the battlefields of Vietnam, and today we honor them. Staff Sergeant Carl G. Taylor, Sr., enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, along with his brother, Walter William Taylor. They signed up and joined out of the recruiting station in Baltimore on January 15, 1959. Upon completing recruit training with the 3rd Recruit Training Battalion at MCRD Paris Island, South Carolina, Carl went on to infantry combat training with 1st Infantry Training Regiment, Marine Corps Base, Camp Lejeune. After he completed his infantry training in July 1959, he was assigned duty as a rifleman, section leader, and platoon guide, successively. He served with Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 6th Marines, 2nd Marine Division. In February 1968, Carl returned to 3rd Marine Division in Vietnam, this time for duty as a platoon sergeant and company gunnery sergeant of India Company, 3rd Battalion, 26th Marine Regiment. He would spend almost an entire year there before an event that would forever become part of Marine Corps history. On December 8th, 1968, with a battle buddy, he repeatedly maneuvered across an open area to rescue Marines who were too seriously wounded to move by themselves. Upon learning that there were still other seriously wounded men lying in another open area, in very close proximity to an enemy machine gun position, Staff Sergeant Taylor, accompanied by 4 Marines, led his men forward across the fire-swept terrain in an attempt to rescue the Marines. When his team was halted by devastating fire, he directed his Marines to return to the company command post, whereupon he took his grenade launcher and, in full view of the enemy, he charged across the open rice paddy toward the machine gun position, firing his weapon as he ran. Although wounded several times, he succeeded in reaching the machine gun bunker and silencing the fire from that sector. Moments before, he was mortally wounded. Directly instrumental in saving the lives of several of his fellow Marines, Staff Sergeant Taylor, by his indomitable courage, inspiring leadership, and selfless dedication, upheld the highest traditions of the Marine Corps and the United States Naval Service. Staff Sergeant Taylor was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously for his heroic actions that day. Today we honor you, Staff Sergeant Carl Taylor, Sr., and all of the fallen warriors from Vietnam.
Die here with some thoughts I'd like to share, a sort of long-distance firepower on this Memorial Day. 3-day weekend, huh? Memorial Day. A time when typically most Americans come together and remember. But remember what? How long ago did I put those burgers on the grill? Did I remember to put ice in the cooler? Unfortunately, there are some Americans whose thoughts on Memorial Day only extend to those mundane things. But those of us who've worn America's military uniform in war and peace won't be among them. See, we understand the heart of Memorial Day because we've seen firsthand the amount of service and sacrifice that's been paid in defense of our American freedoms. Now, this year, there's kind of a weird vibe running across the country, and it's had us modify and kind of adjust our observations of Memorial Day. We've had to rely on technology like this to share our innermost thoughts and feelings at sort of an uncomfortable distance. But that's not important. What is important on this Memorial Day 2020 is that we find a few moments no matter what's happening in our topsy-turvy quarantined life, to think about the men and women through the ages, ever since our nation was founded, in turmoil and strife and war, who so loved this country and so believed in its promise that they made the ultimate sacrifice. Now, we may have to settle for TV images this year, but I'd like to think that my fellow American citizens will hold on that channel for just a few moments, looking out across those white markers, those sad, long lines of grave markers on our military cemeteries, and remember. Our American military dead deserve so much more. But you know, I like to think that if we gave them just a moment of silence, a moment of reflection, and a whispered thank you, they'd be okay with that. Happy Memorial Day.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time today to honor and pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to our country. I also want to recognize and thank those who have served and still serve, as well as all Gold Star families who have lost a loved one. Know that your sacrifices are appreciated and you are commended for the courage and strength you have shown through difficult times. More than 1.1 million men and women have died in wartime during our nation's history. Add the wounded and missing, and that number is closer to 2.8 million. These numbers should humble us. They represent real people. Mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, the very fabric of communities across the nation. They are loved, they are mourned, they are missed. I personally have friends and shipmates among the ranks of those deceased patriots. It is all too easy for those who have never suffered such losses to not see the holes this leaves in families and communities. FDR once said, "Those who have long enjoyed such privileges as we enjoy forget in time that men have died to win them. Let us never forget." Memorial Day is a chance to reconnect with the roots of our nation's many freedoms. Our way of life has been shaped and made possible by those who have served and by those who have died. We are here today largely thanks to those who are not here. As we commemorate this Memorial Day 2020, our nation is under attack yet again by another enemy, the coronavirus. So I think it is only proper to also recognize and honor all those who have lost their lives, bravely fighting on the front lines against the pandemic. They have selflessly answered our nation's call to service. Please keep them and their families in your prayers today, along with our fallen brothers, sisters in arms. Thank you. God bless America.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to participate in this virtual commemoration of Memorial Day. I'm Senate President Pro Tempore Toni Atkins, and I'm honored to serve as your senator for Senate District 39 in San Diego. I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to all those joining us today who serve or who have served in our nation's armed forces. You are the ones who keep and have kept us safe. On behalf of the people of California, I'd like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to you and to your family this Memorial Day. I'd also like to pay special tribute to our brave men and women who paid the ultimate sacrifice for their country, and to their families who courageously carry on and keep their memory alive. This commemoration is touching to me both as a member of the San Diego community, which, as we all know, is home to the largest concentration of military in the world, and as someone whose family's very fabric is threaded with military service. My father, both my brothers, my twin sister, my brother-in-law, uncles, cousins, and two of my nephews all served in our armed forces. Like many of you, I've witnessed firsthand the sacrifice, and I've experienced firsthand the pride. California, too, is thankful for the service of those enlisted, and we honor those who have sacrificed their lives for our freedom.
There's often confusion amongst many on Memorial Day, which of course is today, and Veterans Day that occurs in November. The origin of Memorial Day was Decoration Day, a day set aside after the Civil War to decorate the graves of the fallen during that war. And while the exact date and location, somewhere between 1886 and 1868, is places like Columbus, Mississippi, Macon, Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, and Waterloo, New York, there is no doubt about the need to honor those veterans that made the ultimate sacrifice. Decoration Day evolved into what we now commemorate as Memorial Day, a day to remember and honor the men and women of all of our conflicts that have sacrificed their lives in military service of our country. During the dark days of World War II, Winston Churchill said, "Never in the field of conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." That statement is as true today as it was then. As we commemorate the holiday, let us do so with gratitude and reverence for them and their families, and those laid to rest at our next location, the Miramar National Cemetery.
Good morning. My name is Jared Howard, and I have the honor of serving as director of both Fort Rosecrans and Miramar National Cemeteries, two of the most beautiful national cemeteries in our nation. These cemeteries and the heroes interred in them are a testament of Southern California's faithful service to our country. We're in one of the most challenging times in our nation's history, working together to get through the COVID-19 pandemic. The way we are observing Memorial Day is different from what we usually do, but today we continue the tradition of honoring those who sacrificed for our nation. We remember and honor those who gave their lives in uniform by spending a quiet moment paying homage to their courage and sacrifice. We honor the selflessness with which they did their duty so that our public would remain preserved. We now have a virtual way for the public to pay tributes to veterans on the Veterans Legacy Memorial, which is at www.vlm.cem.va.gov. The website, originally launched in 2019 by the VA National Cemetery Administration, contains a memorial page for each veteran and service member interred in a VA National Cemetery. VLM will permit online visitors to leave a comment of tribute on a veteran's page, introducing a new way to observe Memorial Day. The tribute allows visitors to voice memories and appreciation for a veteran's service. I encourage all of you to leave a tribute for one of our many heroes. Our guest speaker today is Robert S. Brewer. Mr. Brewer was sworn in as U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of California on January 16, 2019. Mr. Brewer graduated with a Juris Doctor degree from the University of San Diego in 1975. After college, he was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Mr. Brewer served in Vietnam from 1970 to 1971 as an advisor to the Vietnamese Airborne Division engaged in combat in Cambodia and South Vietnam. His awards include the Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars, and 2 Air Medals. It is an honor to have him join us on this special day.
Good morning. I am honored on this Memorial Day to speak with you on behalf of the Miramar National Cemetery Support Foundation. And I thank my fellow Vietnam veteran, Denny Scoville, for his kind introduction and invitation for me. All 4 of the great San Diego locations celebrating this Memorial Day event mean a great deal to San Diegans and certainly to veterans. A special personal shout out from me to the Board of Trustees of the Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial, a board I served on for several years. Many of my fellow Vietnam veterans are buried at this beautiful Miramar National Cemetery. But today I want to talk briefly about another war whose veterans are also buried here and whose numbers are increasing every week. And that is the Korean War. A war many Americans know very little about, which started 70 years ago next month. In 1950, the United States led a coalition of 15 other United Nations countries to repel an aggressive attack by North Korea against our ally, South Korea. It was a vicious, high-casualty, brutal war that surged up and down the Korean Peninsula for 3 long years. When the Armistice Agreement was signed in July 1953, almost 40,000 American soldiers had lost their lives. I want to briefly mention one hero from that war, Army Chaplain and Captain Emil Coupon. He was assigned in 1950 to the 8th Cavalry Regiment of the United States Army's 1st Cavalry Division. During the Battle of Unsan on November 1st and 2nd of 1950, his unit was completely surrounded by at least a brigade of North Koreans. This brave, unarmed chaplain provided comfort and first aid to numerous wounded American soldiers, dragging them to safety under intense, withering enemy fire. He refused several opportunities to escape, and he stayed to care for the wounded American soldiers. He was captured, as he knew he would be, and as a prisoner of war, he was brutally marched to a POW camp in northern North Korea. There he continued to care and pray with the many other American POWs and was severely punished on several occasions for that behavior. In defiance of his captors, he held a sunrise Easter service in April 1951. For that, he was again severely beaten and punished. He never regained his health, and 6 weeks later, on May 23, 1951, he died in captivity. 62 years later, on April 11, 2013, Captain Coupon was posthumously awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. He became the 9th chaplain in the history of the United States to receive the nation's highest award for gallantry in combat. There are so many ordinary soldiers like the chaplain who, by the virtue of their service and sacrifice, become extraordinary soldiers. It's very important that we all remember the true meaning of Memorial Day. In a poll a few years ago, only 28% of Americans knew what Memorial Day really meant. We have to teach our children and our friends the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Veterans Day, which is celebrated on November 11th of every year, we thank and honor all those who have served in the military. But today, Memorial Day, is a day unlike any other day, because today we honor and remember all those men and women who gave their lives, who paid the ultimate sacrifice for us, for this country, for our freedom, and our cherished way of life. Although sadness touches our hearts, courage and bravery are 2 Memorial Day traditions that will carry on long after we are gone. In conclusion, to my fellow Vietnam veterans, I say welcome home. As you know, we cannot hear that too often. To the families and relatives of the people and soldiers we honor today, we feel your pain and we pray for your loss. To my fellow San Diegans, as we live through this coronavirus pandemic and all of the collateral consequences, we are in this together and we will survive. And finally, to the Miramar National Cemetery Support Foundation, thank you for this meaningful opportunity for me to participate in such a wonderful event. God bless all our veterans and their families. Thank you.
As we celebrate, albeit virtually, this Memorial Day, we are keenly aware that our ability, our freedom, to come together, to light off the grill, to open the pool, to enjoy a parade has been significantly curbed. Whether thwarted from attending a high school graduation, or hopping in a car or a plane to go visit parents or children for a special holiday, or hanging out with friends at a local restaurant, our wings have been clipped, and we're just not at liberty to do as we please. Freedom's important to us as Americans, But more than the reckless abandon to come and go at will, the freedom on which our country was established was a liberty far more significant. It was to be defended, and in fact has been preserved in our Constitution. Hundreds of thousands of Americans have put on the cloth of our nation, left the comfort of hearth and home, and deployed into hostile places across the globe to defend our liberties, our freedom of speech, of religion, and of the right to gather, just to name a few. Countless men and women were heroes who loved this nation and gave their lives to preserve its freedom. Though much on this Memorial Day has changed, we will recover. Our country, Americans, are resilient that way. But this year, may we remember that the spirit of strength has been born on the backs of those who died to allow us to enjoy another holiday weekend. May our prayer this day be one of gratitude for our American heroes.
Hi, I'm Charlie Bolden. From 2000 to 2002, I was honored to serve as the commanding general of the 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing at the Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, right there in San Diego. And I'm also honored today to be among those who were given an opportunity to speak to you about the significance of Memorial Day. For me, it's a very special day because it's a day on which I call to mind those men and women with whom I've served in my time in the Marine Corps, and also those about whom I heard from my father and my uncles who served in World War II. Memorial Day is a very special day, and it is a day in which we think about people who sacrificed themselves so that we could have the kind of peace and prosperity we have today. This is not a normal Memorial Day as we're hunkered down because of the coronavirus, but nonetheless, it is still a very special day that should give all of us a sense of duty, a sense of commitment, and a sense of knowing that we can make a difference, that tomorrow will be different and it will be better if we make it better. So I would encourage all of us as we go our separate ways after these observances today to remember the sacrifice that those made before us, try our best to make this world the kind of place in which we would like for our children and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren to grow up in. And if we put our minds to it, we can make it better. So to all of you, I salute you and wish you all the best on this Memorial Day.
Hello, San Diego. Thank you for this opportunity to return to my roots and address my fellow San Diegans. Throughout our nation's history, the finest of every generation have stepped forward to answer the call. 70 years ago, the fate of the Korean War rested on the soldiers of United States Marines and sailors approaching the port city of Incheon through heavy seas and extreme tides. Their mission: establish a beachhead far behind enemy lines and break the back of the North Korean advance. Through grit and determination, they took the narrow harbor, scaled steep seawalls through withering fire, and accomplished the mission. Like every other Marine, sailor, soldier, airman, and Coast Guardsman who fought in Korea, from Pusan to the Chosun Reservoir, the warriors of the Incheon landing met the moment and changed the world. Today, we remember them all and honor the memory of those who never returned. The opportunities we all have today were paid for by the blood and sacrifice of our warriors. We can never forget them or their families. This Memorial Day and every day, let's take a moment to remember our fallen heroes, thank our veterans, and stand by the men and women who continue to stand the watch today. Thank you.
Now back on board the USS Midway Museum, I hand off the next portion of our ceremony to Dave Kuntz.
And welcome back to the USS Midway Museum. We are honored to be part of the San Diego Memorial Day virtual tribute, not only to salute the military heroes of the past, but to thank the frontline heroes of today. We are extremely grateful that Rear Admiral Bette Bolivar, Commander Navy Region Southwest, also known as San Diego's Navy Mayor, and Dave Neslight, the Chief of Police of the City of San Diego, have joined us today for this commemoration. Following their remarks, we will have a brief wreath-laying ceremony to honor our fallen service members. Now I'd like to introduce Rear Admiral Bolivar. Admiral.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today to honor our fallen heroes. Although ceremonies like today's are important, we all have an obligation to remember and honor our heroes each and every day, especially now. Though they are no longer physically with us, their spirits will live forever in the hearts of their families, friends, and comrades. At this time, I would like to recognize the families of the fallen we are honoring today. To you, the mothers, the fathers, the husbands, wives, and children of America's hero, I say, the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who mean so much to you showed great honor and courage in the face of adversity because of you. Without your unending support, they would not have had the determination to follow through with their missions in order to maintain our peace and security. I salute each and every one of you for your unwavering support to our military men and women, and only hope you find comfort in the support that we have for you. During conflicts throughout the world, the men and women who so bravely risked their lives in the defense of our freedom will never be forgotten, as long as we continue to speak of them and the contributions they made to our great nation. It is especially meaningful this year, the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, that we honor those of the greatest generation who sacrificed so much of their way of life for our values that we hold so dearly. As we remember those we have lost and those who continue to fight, let us pay them homage for the lives that we lead. Let us keep in mind their extraordinary sacrifice and their willingness to bear the burden of war for our country. When our flags fly proudly overhead, let us think of the honor they uphold. And when the trumpet plays taps, let us remember that this was the final tribute paid to our lost service members, a tribute that they so well deserve. Know that those who have given their lives for ours did so with a purpose that was greater than all of us. Know that the fallen are not truly lost. Every year on this special day, they live again. Today is about their bravery, their loyalty, and their fierce resolve to do something better not only for themselves, but for all Americans. It has been my honor and pleasure to share this tremendously important occasion with you. May God bless each one of you and our fallen heroes. May God bless the greatest generation. And Huya, may God continue to bless our great country, the United States of America. Thank you. Chief Nizlight, our San Diego Chief of Police, come on up.
Thank you, Admiral Bolivar, and good morning. Memorial Day is a time when we honor and pay tribute to the brave men and women who gave their lives while serving and protecting our country. San Diego is most certainly a military town. Everywhere you look, you are reminded of symbols of freedom, including the very spot where I am standing today. When we see these symbols, we must never forget the sacrifices of those who died fighting for the rights and freedoms we have today. I'm so proud to have grown up in a city that exemplifies what it means to serve. I truly believe serving others, especially those you may not know, is the most honorable thing a person can do. This is why I've dedicated my life to serving and protecting the people of San Diego. This year's Memorial Day is unlike any other in our lifetime. We have all had our lives changed by this worldwide medical crisis. One thing this pandemic will not change is the support our communities have for one another. When times are tough, we all work together to get back on our feet and look ahead to a brighter tomorrow. Each day we see and hear inspiring stories of people helping one another. Our communities are filled with great people who choose to put others before themselves. When our country was essentially stopped in its tracks, many industries and services had to keep functioning no matter how dangerous it was to their employees. We cannot thank these people enough for what they have done. Grocery store employees, truck drivers, delivery service, and food bank workers worked day and night to ensure we had access to food and essential goods. Public utility workers ensured our basic home services were safe and functioning, even while many things outside our homes were not. I can tell you the law enforcement community will always hold a special place in our hearts for doctors and nurses.
On any given day, we may face a life-threatening situation. We know our healthcare heroes are so vital in keeping us safe and our communities safe. Their level of commitment and bravery during this pandemic has been amazing. It's also very important to recognize the families of our frontline workers. As someone who's been in law enforcement for over 32 years, I know how important the love and support of my family has been throughout my career, and especially during these difficult times. As the chief of the San Diego Police Department, it is my job to make sure the men and women of my department are safe while protecting and serving our communities. This can be given a challenge even during, or challenge in our profession, especially during COVID-19. I'm so proud of the men and women of the San Diego Police Department, as well as all first responders who show up to work each and every day to keep our communities safe. They do this while being faced with a dangerous virus. Because of these dangers, this year's Memorial Day will not be like anything in years past. There will be no public ceremonies or other commemorative events. These temporary changes will not prevent us from recognizing what so many brave women did for our country. I will conclude my remarks by saying, even though Memorial Day is once a year, I would ask you to always remember and honor our military heroes who gave their lives so we could live ours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. At this time, I'd like you and Admiral Bolivar to accompany Navy Region Southwest Command Master Chief Chris Fitzgerald in this moment of respect and gratitude for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation through this wreath-laying ceremony. By doing so, we remember the fallen and we honor all of those who have served. Master Chief.
Hey everyone, happy Memorial Day. It's important to remember what this day is really about. It's about remembering those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Many of my friends have done that. I remember their families and I remember what they're going through every single day. And it's important, I think, to go up to veterans on a day like today and say never forget. There's a good chance that maybe that veteran knows somebody who did make the ultimate sacrifice and still in contact with their family. And we can never forget them. We must always remind them that we remember their sacrifice and remember their defense of our way of life and our prosperity. So never forget, and that's especially true this year, the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, when our forefathers sacrificed on our behalf. So never forget.
This year, we commemorate the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II, a war that through great struggles and great deeds defined an entire generation. Like those who make the ultimate sacrifice in today's wars, those brave men and women bought with their blood the freedoms that we all enjoy. In honor of Memorial Day, and on behalf of all Marines at home and deployed, I say thank you and affirm that they will never be forgotten. Super Fidelis.
Hey, this is Congressman Scott Peters coming to you from in place and wishing you a wonderful Memorial Day. That's an occasion that's very special to San Diego, where I have so many people serving and where the military is such a big part of our lives, our economy, and our culture. This year we're commemorating the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II in May in Europe and in September entirely. It was the deadliest war ever, involved over 30 countries, 418,000 American casualties. We don't have a lot of World War II veterans left just naturally because of how much time has passed. But we want to wish them the very best. We want to thank them for their service. And I know that Memorial Day is the day we remember those who've passed on, but I do want to say to those people who've served how much we appreciate your service each and every day. We remember those we've lost and who've passed on. We'll have to do that in our own rooms until maybe next year. But it's an important day and I wanted to commemorate it and wish you all a very meaningful and safe and healthy Memorial Day.
As John J. Harris, I was a captain in the United States Army Air Corps. I was commissioned June 30th, 1944. I was sent to Panama at that time for a short period of time, and then I was returned to the United States. I was sent to the China-Burma Theater in 1944 to fly against the Japanese. I had 55 combat missions flying a P-51 Mustang against the Japanese. We had one epic mission where 48 P-51s raided the Don Mueang airfield in Thailand, where we destroyed some 46 Japanese airplanes on the ground. We were, for the success of that mission, we were all given the Distinguished Flying Cross, plus we were all given the Presidential Unit Citation. I'd like to wish you all a happy Memorial Day.
Hello, my name is Rick Benito. I am a proud Navy veteran and national executive for Bank of America. Military service runs deep in our family. My father was a retired Air Force serviceman, and my son is a Marine Corps captain. It's an honor for me to work for a company like Bank of America, as this year marks 100 years of banking our nation's military and their families. Bank of America is proud to be the sponsor of the USS Midway's Legacy Week. On this Memorial Day, join us in honoring those who've made the ultimate sacrifice to defend our country and our freedoms.
Marine Corps veteran, former City of San Diego Mayor, and Governor Pete Wilson passed this question and response to us. Why is Memorial Day such an important occasion for this live presentation today from San Diego? The San Diego region is home to countless active duty service members, military veterans, their families, loved ones, and the proud host to several of America's most important military bases. Memorial Day is an important day each year when we Americans celebrate our freedom and all the precious gifts that freedom assures us every day. We can't take that freedom for granted. Thousands of young Americans in every generation have paid a terribly high price to preserve that freedom. Many of those brave service members now reside in Fort Rosecrans and Miramar National Cemeteries. Their plaques adorn the Mount Soledad National Veterans Memorial, and their tales are told right here aboard the USS Midway Museum. As we have traveled today to these many iconic locations, we ask that you bring your children here too, so that they can learn while they're young that with their livelihood comes a debt owed, a debt of gratitude. Having risked their lives so that future generations of Americans might enjoy unparalleled freedom and opportunity, these young men and women deserve to live in peace in our beautiful corner of America. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this virtual journey. And as you finish up your Memorial Day this weekend, we ask that you too pause. Take just a moment to reflect on those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. I'm Mark Bailey, Thank you for joining us, and may God continue to bless this great land, America.